Tug-of-war. In 1995, in Westernohe, near Frankfurt, Germany, a group of 650 Boy Scouts gathered to do something fun, something wholesome, something that would make their parents proud. They were going to set a world record for the biggest tug-of-war ever played. 650 kids, 2 teams, 1 rope, and a dream. Sounds like a great Saturday, right? Leave it to the Germans to turn a children's game into an engineering disaster. Except for one small detail. The rope they used was made of nylon, and it was only about the thickness of a thumb. A thumb. For 650 people pulling in opposite directions with everything they had. Now, here's a quick physics lesson for free. When you put that much tension on a nylon rope, it stretches. It stores energy. And when it snaps, it doesn't just fall to the ground like a piece of spaghetti. It recoils. It whips back like a giant invisible blade. And that's exactly what happened. The rope snapped, and the broken end whipped back with such violent force that it struck a 9-year-old boy in the head. He was killed instantly. In the chaos that followed, as hundreds of kids lost their footing and tumbled forward, a second boy was crushed to death under the weight of the human pileup at the front line. Bodies on top of bodies. He didn't stand a chance. In total, 102 participants were seriously injured. They suffered deep rope burns, lacerations, broken bones, and trampling injuries. Some kids were flung sideways by the force of the snap. Others were dragged along the ground. It was a scene of absolute carnage at what was supposed to be a fun afternoon at scout camp. It looked like a scene straight out of Squid Game, except nobody signed up for this, and the prize was a badge, not millions of dollars. There are now actual safety manuals for tug-of-war, like official documents, and this disaster is Exhibit A in every single one of them. They warn against using thin nylon ropes. They warn against having too many participants. They warn against exactly what happened in Westernohe. It's a horrifying reminder that even the most innocent-seeming challenge can turn deadly when you don't respect the laws of physics. Bill Warner. Bill Warner was a 44-year-old tropical fish farmer from Wimauma, Florida. By day, he raised exotic fish. By weekend, he rode motorcycles faster than most commercial airplanes fly. That's a real sentence I just said. A fish farmer who went 300 miles per hour on a motorcycle. In July 2011, he set the world land speed record for a conventional sit-up motorcycle, hitting an absolutely insane 311 miles per hour over a 1.5-mile course at the Loring Timing Association's meet in Limestone, Maine. The track was a converted Air Force runway. The bike was a heavily modified Suzuki Hayabusa. The man was fearless. 2 years later, in July 2013, he came back to Loring to push even further. This time, the goal was to break 300 miles per hour over a shorter distance, just 1 mile. On July 13th, he hit 296 miles per hour under less than ideal conditions, effectively setting a new record. But Warner wasn't satisfied with 296. He wanted 300. The next morning, July 14th, he went for it again. He was clocked at 285 miles per hour when something went wrong. The bike suddenly veered to the right, left the runway, and struck a low concrete light pedestal at the edge of the tarmac. The impact launched Warner through the air. Witnesses said he was thrown roughly 40 feet into the air before slamming back down onto the ground. And here's the part that haunts people. He was conscious. He was talking to rescuers. He was alert and responsive as they loaded him into the ambulance. He died about an hour later at Cary Medical Center in Caribou, Maine, from massive internal trauma. The painful irony of Bill Warner's death is that he didn't die during his legendary 311 miles per hour run. He died while only going 285, trying to repeat a feat he'd already accomplished over a slightly longer distance. He had already proven he was the fastest man on 2 wheels. He just wanted to prove it one more time. and it cost him everything. Vali Graham. Okay, so this next guy didn't actually die, but I absolutely, positively, 100% have to include him. Because what he did was so unbelievably stupid, so spectacularly reckless, that it's basically a preview of a future tragedy. Someone is going to see what Vali Graham did, try to copy it, and they will not survive. Mark my words. This is Vali Graham, a 21-year-old Australian who describes himself as a death diving enthusiast, artist, and athlete. In June 2025, he stood at the top of Minnehaha Falls in the Blue Mountains just outside Sydney. The waterfall is 139 feet high, taller than a 14-story building. And he jumped on purpose. In a death dive, or dødsing as the Norwegians call it, you're supposed to belly flop toward the water and pull into a tuck at the last second. The key word being supposed to. Vali hit the water wrong. The impact was catastrophic. He fractured his spine. He fractured his sternum. He fractured his skull. He burst an eardrum and suffered a severe concussion. He was knocked unconscious in the water and had to be pulled out by people nearby. The video, of course, went viral. Millions of views. Comments ranging from legend to idiot to how is he alive? This guy is the reason warning labels exist. He's the human equivalent of a do not attempt disclaimer. He jumped off a 14-story waterfall, belly first, broke basically every bone in his upper body, and somehow lived to tell the story. And that's exactly the problem. Because he survived, someone else is going to think they can do it too. So let's all take a moment to appreciate Vali Graham, the luckiest, dumbest, most indestructible man to ever jump off a waterfall. A true inspiration. Please, nobody copy this man. Brigitte Lenoir. Brigitte Lenoir was a 40-year-old technical diver from Valais, Switzerland, and she was one of the best deep divers in the world. She specialized in closed-circuit rebreather diving, which is a type of scuba equipment that recycles your air, removes the carbon dioxide, and gives you clean oxygen. It allows you to go deeper and stay longer than conventional scuba gear. She already held the women's world record for a rebreather dive, reaching a depth of about 505 feet. To put that in perspective, that's deeper than the Statue of Liberty is tall. In May 2010, she was in Dahab, on the Red Sea coast of Egypt, training for an even more ambitious target, 656 feet, with an ultimate goal of 755 feet. On May 14th, she descended into the deep blue with roughly 220 pounds of equipment strapped to her body. Multiple bailout cylinders, her rebreather unit, weights, and safety gear. At those depths, the pressure is immense. The water is pitch black. The nitrogen in your blood starts doing strange things to your brain. There is absolutely zero margin for error. Something went wrong during her ascent, at a depth of about 482 feet. The most likely cause was a faulty valve in the oxygen system of her rebreather, which would have caused oxygen toxicity. At those depths, oxygen toxicity triggers violent convulsions, loss of consciousness, and death within minutes. There's nothing anyone can do. You're alone, in the dark, hundreds of meters below the surface, and your own equipment is poisoning you. The bitter irony of Brigitte Lenoir's death is that she had already achieved something extraordinary. She held a world record that most divers could never dream of reaching. But she wanted more. She wanted to go deeper, to push the boundary of what a woman could achieve in the most extreme form of diving. And in the silent, crushing darkness of the Red Sea, she found her limit. She survived the record. She didn't survive the training. Mevoli. Nicholas Mevoli was a 32-year-old American free diver, a former TV and film technician who had traded Hollywood for the deep blue. He was a rising star in competitive free diving, a sport where you dive as deep as you can on a single breath and come back alive. In November 2013, he was at the vertical blue competition in the Bahamas, held at a place called Dean's Blue Hole, one of the deepest underwater sinkholes on the planet. He was attempting a constant weight, no fins dive to 236 feet. No fins, no propulsion, just his body, his breath, and the abyss. 2 days earlier, he'd had a close call. During a different dive, he'd suffered a lung squeeze at 262 feet and had to turn back. His lungs were already damaged. But he went for the record anyway. He descended to 236 feet, tagged the plate at the bottom, and began his ascent. He resurfaced after 3 minutes and 38 seconds underwater. For a brief, beautiful moment, it looked like he'd done it. He gave the required OK signal. The crowd started to cheer. And then he collapsed. He started gasping for air, coughing up blood and a frothy pink fluid. His lungs were filling with fluid from the inside. He fell backward into the water, unconscious. Safety divers and the on-site doctor pulled him out and began resuscitation, but the damage was catastrophic. He died about 90 minutes later from severe pulmonary barotrauma. His lungs had been destroyed by the pressure of the dive, compounded by the injury from 2 days earlier that he'd chosen to ignore. This was the first death in an AIDA-sanctioned competition in over 20 years. It's the ultimate, you made it, but you didn't story. He reached the target. He surfaced. He signaled. He heard the applause. And then he died, in front of everyone, in the warm, clear water of the Bahamas. The line between a world record and a funeral was exactly 3 seconds. Juan Francisco Guillermo. This one is just heartbreaking. In November 2010, a Chilean cyclist named Juan Francisco Guillermo set out on the adventure of a lifetime. His goal? Bike 155,000 miles across 5 continents in 5 years. A Guinness World Record attempt that would take him through deserts, over mountains, across entire countries. And along the way, something unexpected happened. He fell in love. He met a Singaporean woman named Nung Po Lang, married her, and they had a son, Lucas. The 3 of them continued the journey together, as a family. By February 2015, Juan was just months away from completing the record. He'd crossed 4 continents, suffered 793 flat tires, and biked over 87,000 miles. He was in Thailand, heading from Khon Kaen to Nakhon Ratchasima, with the finish line in Australia almost within reach. Juan was in the lead, towing a baby trailer with little Lucas. His wife was on another bike behind him. They had spent the previous week at a Buddhist monastery in Khon Kaen, and before they left, Juan told his wife something that, in hindsight, is devastating. He said he loved the temple so much he wanted his cremation rites held there. On the road, a pickup truck came up behind them. The 64-year-old driver later told police he never saw the bicycles. The truck struck the bike carrying his wife and son first, then plowed into Juan. He was killed instantly. His bike was completely destroyed. Miraculously, his wife and 2-year-old son survived with only minor injuries. He had survived everything: mountains, deserts, storms, exhaustion, loneliness, and 793 flat tires across 4 continents. And he was killed by a careless driver on a straight, flat road in Thailand, months before the finish. The cruelest part? It happened during 2 simultaneous Thai government campaigns, one to reduce traffic fatalities and one to promote cycling. He was so close. So close. And now his cremation was held at the temple he loved, just as he'd asked.